Hi, thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Spiritual Scientist. I'm Victor. So, there is this man who wants to be, really spiritual. So he said, okay, now I have the day off. Now, today's the day where I'm going to be, really spiritual and I'm going to really do good today. So he says, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and have, I'm going to eat vegan today, and I'm going to do yoga, and I'm going to pray, and I'm going to meditate. And that's what I'm going to do today, right? So he says, I got to go make my smoothie. So he goes to make his smoothie, and then he doesn't have the right ingredients, so he starts swearing, oh, gosh darn it, I don't have this, I don't have that. And he makes the smoothie, and then it just doesn't taste right. And he's all like, oh man, I almost had it, This day is screwed up, he goes. So then he finally says, what, I'm going to get dressed. I'm going to go down to the yoga studio and do some yoga. So, but first, maybe I'll do some meditation. So, he goes to meditate and maybe even prayer. So he goes to meditate, and he goes and he sits there, and his mind keeps wandering, and he's like, starts getting angry with himself, and he curses himself. He says, why can't my thoughts stop? Why can't I just stop? And he starts, cursing. He gets angrier and angrier with himself, and he loses his patience after a while. He has a couple of moments of clarity in it, and then he just says, hey, I feel a little bit better. So he does that, and then he finally gets dressed. He can't get his clothes together the right way. And getting dressed is always a problem. I mean, everything you have to pull on one thing after the other. It's never easy. Anyway, he gets his stuff finally together, and he's just like, He gets out to the car, and a bird crapped on his window, and he's like, oh man. He starts cursing again. This is the worst day ever, And then he gets in his car. He starts driving to the yoga place and to the yoga studio. And then he's driving, and people are just driving crazy. And he gets cut off, and they're cutting him off. And he goes, I can't believe how people are being horrible. They're driving horribly. Oh my gosh, I'm getting cut off on the road. I can't drive the way I want to drive. All this traffic. I'm going to be late to my yoga class. I can't believe that I'm going to be late. I was leaving early. I was early, but now I'm going to be late. And then somebody cuts him off again, and the smoothie spills in the car. And he's like, what? Oh my gosh, this is the worst day ever. Oh, how horrible. So he finally grabs his yoga mat out of the back of the car, right? And he goes into the yoga studio, and he sits there, and he tries to get in the yoga, and they're like, it's closed. The door is closed, but he sneaks in. He's like, I need to get in this yoga studio, do yoga. And he asks people, he interrupts the class. He has them move their mats so he can put his mats down. And he starts, he's already missed a part of the first thing in the introduction, which was the coolest part. And he starts doing the yoga, and he's just like, now I could find enlightenment. Now I have peace. And he starts doing some poses, and he gets into it a little bit, and then he's like, boy, now I'm an enlightened being. I am an enlightened being now. Now I could be quiet and finally get into it a little bit. But he has trouble getting into all the yoga, poses, but he's trying. And he starts sweating a little bit at the end. He does Savasana, so he's laying there. And he finally gets into the, a little bit of stillness. And he goes, okay, maybe I found oneness now in this moment. Maybe I just got there, And then all of a sudden he realizes that there's a smell in the room, and the other people in the yoga studio smell a little bit. He starts getting upset. He goes, why isn't this the way I want it to be? Why is it the way it is all the time? And then, he gets his stuff together and finally leaves, and he says something to the yoga teacher, trying to be cool and spiritual, but it just came across, wrong. And he reflects on it back in the car and says, I sound like an idiot. I was trying to be so cool. People were listening to me, but I didn't come across the right way, and people just thought I was an idiot. I'm just so stupid. And he gets in the car, and then he starts driving back, and then, he's just like looking at the smoothie on the ground that he had, and it was just like half of it drank and half of it's on the ground, and he's just reflecting about how horrible a day he's having. At least he had some clarity, a little bit, but, and then he gets back, and then he says, you know what, I can't do this today. I'm not going to do any more meditation or prayer. Forget it. It's over. This is no good for me. Maybe this just whole spiritual thing isn't working out. I don't know. And he just kind of says that's it and gives up. Is this you? Does this all sound familiar to you? Does this all sound like something that, so this is a parable. This is a story, and how's this relating to everybody else, right? So, the point of this story is that, the enlightenment and seeking awareness and being one isn't just on the yoga mat, as I say. It's all the time when we're existing, when we're alive in the present of now, is when we have to seek awareness, and I'll start from the beginning. So when he got up and he made those ingredients, he didn't have the right exact stuff, but it's okay. Seeking forgiveness within yourself is very important when you seek to make, your smoothie, when you seek to make things and finding blessings, for what we have, even though things we think don't measure up to be, perfection. We have to find forgiveness in love. There's love out there in the universe, but we have to, find love and bless the food we're consuming, and thank God for what we have. So then, in the story, he goes out and he finally, gets to the car he's driving, and then he's driving and people cut him off. But instead of, blessing people that are cutting off and finding that higher sense of self and love, he curses them out when he's driving. How much of a spiritual person is this when, he's driving and then people are, cutting him off, and he's angry with them. You see, it's the unconsciousness that we're dwelling at all the time, that people are unconscious, and they say, okay, this is a spiritual moment, and this is not a spiritual moment. and people are differentiating these moments, and all these moments are spiritual moments, you see. So he's driving, he finally, in the smoothie spills, what's that teaching him? That's teaching him forgiveness again. It's teaching him to learn how to see that what happened, and and just find forgiveness for what happened. It just happens, just life happens. But he starts cursing again. He's real angry, and he got cut off, and then he ended up being late for his yoga class. So he wasn't in the moment of now from the beginning, and when he meditated, he wasn't able to find himself. He wasn't finding, his thoughts were all over the place, and he wasn't in the moment. So how could he have been on time when he wasn't in the moment to begin with? So of course he was late, to his yoga class. Then he interrupted, and he finally found a couple of moments where he said, oh, this is a spiritual moment, not realizing his trip to the yoga class, his meditations, all these things together were all spiritual moments. But he forgot, he didn't even realize. And then, like I was saying, it's easy to find enlightenment on the yoga mat, but not so much when somebody throws a rock at your head. So people were just, and then he heard himself speaking. He said, gee, I don't sound so spiritual. I didn't sound so enlightened. He reflects, he's hard on himself. He's not forgiving. So, and then, he goes back in his car, he drives, he's cut off again. And then what happens is he just ends up giving up, because a lot of people just end up, giving up because they don't find the spiritualness that they're looking for. They don't find, they're not finding forgiveness. And what the point of this is, you have to find forgiveness within yourself first. You have to find the spiritualness in the moments we have. We don't have, sometimes we can't get to the yoga studio. Sometimes we have these things occur that are negative in our life. But finding the positive and finding the forgiveness and finding those, spiritual moments that we have are the beautiful moments. Sometimes we have moments that are not great. We have moments that you would quantify not great, but you really have to juxtaposition these moments with death and total obliteration. What's the opposite of life? It's death. What's the opposite of being alive? Is death. So there was this story about a guy who was, I may have told this before, that he had people that, he was on a bridge, so he had people that wanted to, kill him. So they were chasing him, and he didn't know what to do. So he got off on the top of this, high bridge, and then he climbed over the edge, and he's hanging down, by his fingertips. And he's on the bridge, and he's hanging on. He doesn't know what to do, and there's people above him that want to kill him for some reason. And he looks down, and there's lions, below him, and they're roaring lions, and they're gonna eat him as soon as he falls off. And he doesn't have a lot of time left, but he sees a plant growing on the side of the bridge, and he looks at the plant, and he says, and it's a plant with a flower, and he looks at the flower, and he says, that's the most beautiful flower that I've ever seen in my life. And the point is that, these are the moments, and when you're in the moment of now, it's the most beautiful time ever. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share. Bye-bye.